Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. It's the last Friday of the month, which means that it's time for me to once again update my 2019 in music playlist on Spotify. And just a quick note before I get into that, I'm doing a Q&A next week, so if you have any questions for me at all, ask them down in the comment section there, and I will be answering every single one of them next week. So for any of you that don't know what these videos are about, every month I choose a selection of songs, add them to a Spotify playlist that I will have linked below, and then at the end of the year, I'll have a nice playlist, which is kind of like my musical journey through the year. I will always include one instrumental track on the list, usually halfway through, and then the last track on the list every month is something that has significant emotional or sentimental value to me personally. So let's get to it. The first track on the playlist this month is by an artist called Maisie Peters and is called Favorite X. I have said many times before that I'm not usually a fan of acoustic singer-songwriter music. I find that it can often be quite boring and quite dull and just a bit generic and uninteresting, but there are certain exceptions to that I make. If the production is really good and most importantly the lyrics are interesting, then I find myself gravitating towards some acoustic singer-songwriter music, and this track ticks all of those boxes for me. It's a beautiful piece of songwriting, and I really like the lyrics because I love it when lyrics talk about a feeling or experience that is somewhat universal. You know, it's a familiar thing, you can understand what they're talking about, but is also a topic that isn't usually tackled in songwriting or is often overlooked, and I feel like the sentiment behind this track, Favorite X, does that exactly. Lovely track. Maisie Peters' voice is absolutely beautiful on it, and it totally broke my heart when they played it in the background as Amy was leaving the villa. Track 2 on the list is by a band called VOCA Gentle and is called Branscombe. VOCA Gentle are such a cool band. I only discovered them fairly recently, and I've been somewhat hooked on them since then, and this is one of my favorite tracks that I've heard. They can create these super dreamy, ethereal soundscapes, but there are lots of elements of things like folk in there as well. It's kind of like, imagine if the Middle East and Bon Iver had a musical baby. And this track, Branscombe, is absolutely beautiful. It's a bit more subdued than some of their other stuff, and it's got this really, really nice, dreamy vocal production on it that's kind of all multi-tracked, so it's a very floaty, ethereal track, but it definitely has a bit of the identity that I've heard in other VOCA Gentle tracks injected into it as well. So yeah, that's track number 2 on the list. Track number 3 is by a relatively unknown and underground singer and artist. It's by someone called Taylor Swift and is called The Archer. I enjoy some Taylor Swift, and it's only fitting that I include her latest single release on this playlist because I have been listening to it a fair amount recently. It's a really cool song, and I think it's miles better than the previous single she'd released. There are some strong 1989 vibes to this track. It's very sort of synthwavy, and that's a good thing in my opinion. I think that 1989 is one of the best records that she ever released. I do wish that it developed a bit more as it was going on. I felt like there was a point where I was expecting something else to happen that just never happened, but either way, I think it's a cool song. It's better than the previous single that she released, and I'm really enjoying it. Track number 4 is by a musical duo that I've mentioned before in these videos. They're called J.Do. Heart, and it's their latest single, The Omen. J.Do. Heart are a super cool musical duo that create indie, dream, poppy, chill out, trip hop, sort of. And I love it. This is their latest single that came out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I think, and it doesn't disappoint. It's got all of the hallmarks of their music that I've already listened to, which is all good stuff. And I love in this track how it takes a bit of time for the beat to come in, but then when it does come in, it sounds so satisfying. It's kind of doing exactly what you want it to. They've got really good, interesting, and innovative production styles on this, all married with the kind of dreamy, subtle vocals that they both contribute to, and it fits together so well. It's a great track. So yeah, that's track number 4, The Omen by J.Do. Heart. Track number 5 is the instrumental track for this month, and it's by a composer called Adam Taylor and is called Of Glen and Of Fred, taken from the brilliantly crafted score to The Handmaid's Tale. And there isn't really much of a story to why I've chosen this track. I've just been watching The Handmaid's Tale recently, and I absolutely love the score. It's so cool, it's so well done, lots of drone influences on there, and lots of big, harsh, scary sounding synths, and there's this recurring theme of a synth basically just like glissandoing down a semitone, and it sounds so ominous and scary. And the second track on the score is called Chased, and I was going to use that as the track for this month, but I thought that it was maybe a little bit too frightening and unnerving, so I went with this one because it's got a little bit of that at the beginning, but then it has this sort of Max Richter-y string section that comes in. It's beautiful. It's just a really, really lovely piece of music from a fantastic score. So if you haven't seen The Handmaid's Tale, I'd recommend that you watch it, and if you haven't listened to the score for The Handmaid's Tale, I'd recommend that you listen to it. Oh, and a bonus instrumental track included on this playlist is Here's My Heart by Thomas James White. That's me. Right, so I've only got one more track to include on the playlist this month, and I know that last month I didn't have 10 tracks either. It's really difficult making these videos if I haven't been actively listening to a lot of music, which I haven't been recently because I've been so busy. But I will say that the 6th track I'm including is one that holds significant emotional value to me personally. And that song is by a band called The National and is called Hard to Find. This is the closing track on their wonderful album Trouble Will Find Me, which was the first The National record I ever listened to. I sort of discovered them in the summer before I went to university. I can remember buying Trouble Will Find Me on vinyl in Sister Ray Records in London. It was a really unpleasant summer for me, but discovering The National was definitely a good thing, and Hard to Find was one of the first songs of theirs that I heard. It was probably featured in like an episode of Suits or something, but I listened to it, and very quickly after hearing it, I can remember thinking, they're probably going to be one of my favourite bands, aren't they? And then lo and behold, they were. So that album, Trouble Will Find Me, is probably one of my favourite albums by them, and this song along with Humiliation are two of my favourite tracks that they've ever done, but especially on that album. Hard to Find just takes me to a certain place of calm and quiet reflection whenever I listen to it. It's absolutely beautiful, and as is always the case with The National, the lyrics tap into something that just has a bit more substance to it emotionally than other bands and artists that make similar music. And I just love it. You should listen to it. It'll make you happy and sad all at the same time. So there we go. Those are the playlist updates for this month. And again, I'm sorry that I'm not updating it with 10 tracks each time. I am sincerely going to make an effort to have 10 tracks on the next installment. And as I said at the beginning of this video, ask any questions that you have for me down in the comment section there, and I'll be doing a Q&A next week for them. There'll also be a pre-save link in the description for my latest instrumental single, Be At Rest, which is coming out next week. I hope you're looking forward to that. I really enjoyed producing it. Yeah, everything that you need is in the description. Ask any questions you want in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know what music you've been listening to recently, and if you have any recommendations for me, have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you very soon.